Great. All right, so welcome to this webinar on the art of learning. My name is Shraddha, and I'm going to be the moderator for this webinar. I'm not going to be the facilitator. The facilitator is Mr. Dipankar Das, who is our managing partner, and I'll quickly hand over to him in a while. But before I do that, I want to just introduce you to who we are, for those especially who have logged in for a Strengthscape webinar for the first time or getting associated with us for the first time. We are an organizational development and transformation company in Bangalore, and end-to-end we do everything that comes under the purview of OD and L&D. And me, just about me. So I'm a senior analyst at Strengthscape, and I lead the delivery and operations team here. Whereas Dipankar, who is going to be the facilitator for today's webinar, is the managing partner, and he heads the OD consulting business. So once I hand over to him, Dipankar is going to quickly introduce himself before he starts the webinar for you. A little bit about our offerings. So our core strength remains psychometric assessments. We are partners with John Wiley & Sons, and we are partners with a French company called Central Test, and we are resellers of their assessments, and also we use these assessments for the other offerings that you see on the screen. So we do behavioral training for leadership, managers, for individual contributors. We do certifications like DISC and instructional design. We are also coming up with technical certifications like ITIL, DevOps, and Adobe Captivate. We do competency mapping, digital learning, which is our content development and e-learning service line. We're also into executive coaching, both leadership, the senior leadership, as well as managerial coaching. We do image consulting, OD consulting, as well as technical training. So this is just a gist of our service lines. So I do see some chats that says not able to hear. Okay, so yeah, yes. So Ravi, who is our IT, from our IT team, he's going to help you out for those who are not able to hear. So let me just continue. So those are our offerings, and these are our partners. As I said, John Wiley, we deal with their everything DISC assessments, also the 5 behaviors of a cohesive team. We are partners with Central Test for competency-based psychometric assessment tools, Skillsoft for off-the-shelf e-learning content, Axelos, DevOps Institute, and Alibaba Cloud, they are our technical training partners. So that's a bit about us, and now we are ready to start the webinar. And I'm going to quickly launch a poll for all of you. So just give me a minute. So there's a question. There are 4 options. You could select any one of those 4 options. 5 options, yes. Okay. So that's the poll. I hope everyone is able to see the poll. The poll is open now. Let's get some responses to this. Okay, after about 2 minutes, I'm going to close this poll and then hand it over to Dipankar. Okay, so I'm now going to close the poll. Okay, so what is the art of learning? That was the question, and about 3% of people said to be able to apply the knowledge. 21% said to learn, unlearn, relearn, to 6% said to practice till we master, another 6% who said to think from different perspectives, and 65%, it's majority of you, said all of the above. So now I am going to hand it over to Dipankar, who is going to tell you what is the art of learning. So Dipankar, over to you.
Thanks, Shraddha. I think right away Shraddha has kind of molded a question, what is really the art of learning? And I think about more than 60% of us have said that all those options that we saw over there. So, well, that's the correct answer, all those options, and that's what we will talk about today. So thanks for taking time out on a Wednesday afternoon, and very, very good afternoon to all of you. Also, some of you are, I think Samuel is there from outside India. So I don't know which part of the day it is for you, but welcome, and hope you're having a great day. This is something which is learning is something that we all do, and strangely we know not too much about what are the best ways of learning. So it's something that we all do, and yet intriguingly we don't seem to learn about learning. So that's what we'll be talking about today. My name is Dipankar. I look after the organizational development consulting vertical in Strentscape. Have more than about 20 years of work-ex. Have worked in various industries, including infrastructure, outsourcing, consulting industry. Really a gray-haired man, metaphorically speaking. So let's dive into what is really the art of learning. So we will talk about learning, we will talk about knowing, we will talk about understanding, and then eventually, when the rubber hits the road, which is performing. So it's good to know a lot of things, it's good to learn, it's good to understand, but ultimately we need to use that knowledge and perform. So that's what we will be talking about today. So the art of learning, Alvin Toffler, who was a futurologist who passed away about 2 years ago and wrote extensively about the way things are going to be shaping up in the 21st century. So mentioned that the illiterates of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but they will be people who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. So obviously, all of us, we are most of us in the learning business, and what he's referring to over here is the flexibility that we need to be able to learn, unlearn, and relearn. Now, why would there be such a requirement for learning and unlearning? I mean, are we all budding scholars? Are we all all about being professors or something on those lines? Well, not really. Now, let's look at this slide, which says that this is a clipping from the Times of India, which says that employment in the age of automation and preparing labor with future-ready skills. So what this writer is talking about is that we need to encourage a culture of being versatile and adaptable. Why versatile and adaptable? Because the job profiles that we're doing currently, chances are that 10 years, 15 years, 20 years down the line, these profiles will not exist. Probably even 5 years down the line, many of the profiles that we are doing currently will not exist. So that's the technological imperative of having to change. But there is, other than technological imperative, even the economic imperative. If you look at people, if you look at our fathers and our grandfathers, they would join a job, let's say in the 50s or 60s, and they would continue to do the job for about 3 decades, 2 decades, and rarely would they go on and do another job. Then in the 80s and 90s, we saw that people started changing jobs. And now today, we are not changing jobs. What we're doing is we are changing entire careers. And not once, not twice. One of the surveys says that average young American even looks at changing his or her career thrice in their lifetime. So that's a huge change. Earlier, we were not really comfortable at all. And today we are not just changing jobs, but we are changing careers. And you cannot do this successfully unless you're adaptable, unless you're versatile, unless you're open to what Alvin Toffler says, learning, relearning, unlearning. So that versatility and the flexibility has to be in evidence. Otherwise, chances are that we are not going to be very successful. Now, who doesn't want to be successful? All of us do, right? So let's start with the way things are at the beginning, the beginner's mind. So in Zen Buddhism, there is a concept of the Shoshin, or the beginner's mind. In Latin, we say tabula, which is a clean slate. That nothing is written over there, and you kind of start, you make a new beginning. So now the author Carol Dweck, she's the author of the book called Mindsets. And she talks about there are two sets of people. One set who believe in congenital talent. There are people who believe, hey, I'm so talented, I'm so different, I'm so way out. And the other set of people who may or may not have talent, but who really keep pushing, stretching, confronting their own limitations, own mistakes, and keep learning from that. So now what we are talking about is you have a fixed mindset or you have an open mindset. A fixed mindset person believes that either you have it or you don't. An open mindset person believes that you can always go and acquire. You may not be born with it, but you can always go and acquire. And to do that, you need to have an open mind. You need to have a clean slate. Have a mind that is very accepting. So that's really the kind of mind we are talking about. We need that sort of a mind to be open and to be accepting. But along with an open mind and an open attitude, what really helps are some attitudinal aspects. One of them is humility. So being humble, being open, being willing to risk the emotional pain of making mistakes. These are some essentials for us to be good learners. So because reaching, failing, reaching again is the way the brain grows. That's what we call experience. And that's how the brain keeps creating its neural connections. And that is what we talk about being knowledge. Because in the brain, your knowledge is all stored in terms of neural networks. So mistakes are not really mistakes. They are guideposts to be learned from. And, we need to, when you are open to influence, when you're open to mistakes, you keep learning. So Steve Jobs is supposed to have got the idea of the drop-down menus, the mouse from Xerox, and he happily borrowed it from there. Pablo Picasso famously said that good artists borrow, and great artists, what do? They steal. And that is reminiscent of what Jack Welch said, that if you find something good, steal shamelessly. Go ahead and steal, because a good idea is a good idea, be it for somebody. So ultimately, it is the universal benefit that we are talking about. So another very important aspect when you're learning is the role of a role model. So what does a role model do really? A role model is immensely powerful because, look, when we are learning something, when we are reading something, it could be fairly impersonal. But when you have a role model, when you are saying that, hey, I want to be influenced by, let's say, Lionel Messi or Ronaldo, I want to play football like them. So constantly looking up at a particular individual, seeking to learn from that individual, he or she may not be there physically in front of you, but that role model would be a source of great motivation. So that's what it does. So, for example, there was a study in South Korea in 1997, and at that time there were no women South Korean golfers anywhere. And today, I believe there are more than 40 world-class women golfers in Korea, inspired by Seri Park, who won 2 major tournaments in 1998. So, as one of the world-class champions says, that how she spurred them on was when they asked themselves, "Hey, if she can do it, why can't I?" So, what's stopping me? So that's really the power of inspiration. And that's what, gets you going. So that's enormous motivation. And learning can be a difficult journey. So if you have motivation by your side, then great. It's, it really keeps you going. So another very important thing, it's a great discovery of the 21st century, is that plastic is all over. Now, when I say that there's plastic in the brain, I'm not really meaning anything negative. Here is something good. So what new researchers are saying is that our brains are very plastic. So it's a theory of neuroplasticity, which refers to the ability of the human brain to change as a result of one's experience. Now, earlier, we were told by biologists, by doctors that, hey, you got to have a lot of Horlicks and Protein X and all those good protein-inducing stuff by the time you're 7, because your brain is going to grow only till you're 7. And after 7, even God can't help you grow your brain. But the good news is that stuff is old knowledge. So doctors also decided to learn, relearn, and unlearn, and discovered that the brain keeps growing. It's a muscle, and it keeps growing depending on whether you want to grow it at all or not. If you want to, then there you are. It's going to help you grow. So, the brain is something which will be by your side if you want to learn, whether you are 40, 60, 80, it doesn't really matter. So in the 19th century, Henry James's brother, William James, he was a great philosopher, and he said that the greatest discovery of our century is that man can change himself the way he wishes to. So till the 18th century, people used to believe that if I am born in a religion, a caste, or a locality, that's the way my life is preordained. But William James suggested that it's not preordained. You can shape your life the way you want. And now in the 21st century, we discover that our brains can be shaped by us. And it is not a part of our anatomy that is lying outside our influence. So it is really you who can make a big difference to your brain. So you keep evolving, keep changing. That's the great story. So as Steve Jobs says, stay hungry, stay foolish. The brain is plastic. You kind of keep working at it. It grows with hard work, and ultimately, no carrot, no stick. If you are motivated from inside, then you don't need extrinsic motivation. So those are some great things which help us learn. So along with that, there is also a certain resilience that it calls for. So there is this book called The Art of Learning, and we have the same title today. So Josh Waitzkin, it's a great book, and he was a U.S. national champion. He said that with hard work, difficult materials can be grasped step by step, incrementally. The novice can become the master. So what he's really saying is very important. What he's saying is that we may be daunted by going in a certain direction, saying that, hey, I don't know this. I'm not mathematically oriented, so I don't know the numbers. Or I'm not a very physical person, so I can't really take part in this race, or I can't do a marathon. So he says that, hey, even if it's difficult, it can be grasped. Do it step by step, do it incrementally, and chances are that you can become the master. The mastership is open to everybody. So we need to maintain or quickly reestablish concentration when we get stuck on something difficult or get frustrated. And this is the persistence that is very important to be a good learner. So you have to be persistent, you have to be stubborn, and you have to be at it. In short, that is known as grit. So according to economist and Nobel laureate James Heckman, he says that numerous instances can be cited of people with high IQ who failed to achieve success in life because they lacked self-discipline. And there are umpteen number of people who may not have very high IQ, but they are succeeded by virtue of persistence, reliability, and self-discipline. And if you're familiar with Samuel Johnson, who was the person who compiled the first English dictionary, he said something very similar. He said, there is nothing more common than men of great intelligence who have never really made much use of their intelligence. So simply being born intelligent or not being born intelligent, that will not really decide which way you go. So so being resilient, being like Aesop's fables, turtle and rabbit, You have to be resilient. But resilience really comes from the Latin word resilio, which is to jump back. So there is nothing that can keep you back. There's nothing that can hold you. So you can always jump back if you believe in your ability to learn and grow. So that was the preliminary about the learning. Let's see what really is knowing. So according to George Siemens, author of Knowing Knowledge, learning is defined as applied knowledge. So it is something that you may know something, but ultimately what is really learning is it has to be applied. So a real challenge for any learning theory is that how do you apply it, and how do you apply it to existing knowledge? You have to connect the dots. You really need to bring it and align it to the context where you can use that knowledge. So then, of course, we are all adults. We have all been through formal schooling, formal learning. So there are different forms of formal learning. So active reading, we read umpteen number of books, comics, newspapers, and of course we always have a choice. We want to do it mindfully or mindlessly. We want to be just browsing through the newspaper while sipping tea, or we really want to think through what we are reading about. So next is annotating. A serious learner annotates, takes notes, thinks through. If he has a doubt, he looks up a dictionary or a thesaurus or a reference. But chances are that most of us are casual readers. We don't really do all that. Then there is something called the KWL strategy, which is you can create 3 columns. If you are an assiduous learner, you can create 3 columns. First column, you say that, hey, these are some of the things which I knew, and this got reiterated. The next column could be want to know. I have questions and I would like to answer an expert or do a web search and find out. And third would be learned, a column filled with where you have discovered some of your answers, be it through web search, be it through conversation, through any way, but basically questions which get answered. So while you are doing that, it's very important that you set specific goals, as we call them SMART goals. So goals have a very powerful magnetic impact on you. They have a reciprocal attraction, and they pull them towards you. So you say that, hey, in the month of November, I want to become an expert on negotiation skills. So, and if you are doing the kind of things that we spoke about so far, chances are that you are already headed in the right direction. Another thing which goes contrary to linear logic, which says forget time. Why should how can I forget time? Time is the most important thing. What is being meant over here is that sometimes when you do deep practice, when you are learning a new skill, don't just measure yourself. Hey, I practiced for 1 hour. I practiced for 2 hours. Focus on, were you able to learn that piece of the skill or not? Not whether I spent 1 hour, or spent 2 hours or 1.5 hours. I'm really hardworking. Not that. But today, I learned how to go into the deep of the pool. So for the first time I went there. So point is, what is the small incremental achievement that you've done today? So the method is simply called smallest achievable perfection, SAP. So, what is the SAP of the day? So if you are learning something, tell yourself that, hey, today is the 14th of November and today's SAP is this. Get up tomorrow morning on the 15th of November and say, today's SAP is this. This is my smallest achievable perfection that I want to get to. So, and, focus on incremental achievement. Focus on small daily snacks. They are far preferable to weekly or monthly binges. So I can say, hey, today is Wednesday. I don't think I really want to work hard and, read up all the stuff. So let me just park it for Saturday. And, here comes Saturday. I say, hey, okay, now it's been a tough week. Let me park it for end of the month. And then when you get 29th or 30th of November, you say, well, it's been a tough month. Why don't I kind of defer this for December? So that's how it goes. So instead, just take, things at a time. Just do a small daily snack or smallest achievable perfection. So that will help you. Now, the world of informal learning. So earlier, formal learning was the real learning, and informal learning was well, it could happen to you, it may not happen to you, so it was a matter of chance. But today we are living in the world of social media. We are living in the world of such powerful digital supplements, be it YouTube, be it Twitter. There's so much to learn. So there is so much that you can do over there in terms of informal learning. But the point really is that can you structure it a bit? You can read so many articles in LinkedIn. I tell myself that, hey, every Saturday late evening, I go to LinkedIn, look up some articles, and so that's how I try and structure it. So it would be help if you try and structure it. And so also keep leveraging your experience. At times we kind of ignore our co-workers, we ignore ourselves, but remember, your experience is a treasure house. So is your friends, so is your colleagues. But point is that you should not just, breeze through it, but take time out, understand what have you been through? What are the implications of what you just lived through? Or your colleagues or your friends, what have they gone through? So, like Socrates said that, the unexamined life is not worth living. If you just examine your life, you will discover a significant amount of wisdom, which you may not really find in books. So take time, delve into yourself, introspect, and chances are that you will find a lot of learning out there. So coming to the next slide, which is, as the old adage goes, practice makes perfect. So, we are, I think, in the generation that once saw Bruce Lee. So Bruce Lee was a great martial arts exponent. And he said that I fear not the man who has 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. So that's practice. That's the power of practice. And it may not really make you perfect, because perfection probably is really a metaphor. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, Dipankar, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we were talking about reaching and repeating. So sometimes when you're practicing something, repetition can be very boring. It can be very tedious, and you don't really want to do it. But that's where your inner smarts comes in. That this is where you need to be persistent. This is where you need to show grit, and you need to keep repeating. Engage when you are certain activities which always you need to be working with many people. For example, public speaking. So suppose you were to be practicing public speaking like Demosthenes. So you need to practice. You need to address groups. You need to go to Toastmasters. You need to go to seminars, and engage and see how it's working out. Very often when we are practicing something, chances are, because you're getting deeper and deeper into practice, we forget the primary purpose of why we were trying to do this. So it's very important that we keep reminding ourselves, what is the main intent? What is the primary purpose of my doing this? And when you are heading towards a journey of enhancing competency, it's very important that you keep taking feedback, because feedback, as they say, is the breakfast of champions. So don't balk at feedback. If feedback is good, find out why it's not so good. What can I do to make it better? So feedback is something, whether you have it for breakfast or not, but please keep seeking feedback, because feedback is what keeps you aligned. So if you are learning new skills and you're getting feedback, please take it as a gift. Feedback is a gift. So understand where the person is coming from, where the feedback is coming from, and what all you can do differently, so that you are able to address the issue that is being pointed out. So that's REPS, for enhancing practice. So next is another good news. So just like we talked about that the brain is really plastic. So it's really up to you whether you want to create a neural network of knowledge, of new knowledge. So the network. Now along with that, so there is a lot of new insights that are coming up on how the brain works. It's a very complex body part, and but the insights are coming thick and fast. So one of the insights is that we have what we call the PFC, or the prefrontal cortex, in our brains. So most of the stimuli that we receive, it comes through that. But well, I personally think it is like the RAM of a computer. It's a random access memory. So it processes things which are kind of there on the surface, which we need to use regularly. So the PFC is always there, helping us understand things. But unfortunately for our prefrontal cortex, it is a bit limited. It's not a very bright part of our body. So the PFC can take maybe 2 or 3 things at a time. So when we say that, hey, I'm multitasking, so well, unfortunately, that's multiple ways of taking your PFC to task. Because when you're multitasking, your PFC is really stretched. It is not able to do too many things. It is not able to help you focus, and eventually you end up being confused. So one way to learn something very well is to try and move that to your long-term memory. So the brain has very powerful long-term memory and good capacity over there. So we have heard, many of us are from HR and from L&D over here. So we have always heard about unconscious incompetence, conscious incompetence, conscious competence, and then unconscious competence. So how do you move from one stage to another? How do you move to the 4th stage, which is unconscious competence? You move to that stage, transferring to your long-term memory. So once some competency is housed in the long-term memory part of your brain, chances are that you are unlikely to forget it in a hurry. So if, let's say, you are cycling, if you are swimming, if you're driving, so these are very commonly used examples of unconscious competence. You don't really need to be think, hey, where's the gear gone? Where is the accelerator? Now let me bite my nail a bit and figure out where the accelerator is. Or even more happy situation to be in, let me find out where the brake is, because I think I have a pedestrian crossing the road right now, and I'm speeding at about 80 miles per hour. So that's not the best of situations, and therefore we need unconscious competence. And how you can have it is by transferring to your long-term memory, where you don't really need to think too much, and instinctively able to apply your competence. So as a learner, do that. You can consign a lot of things to your long-term memory, provided you learn that, you reproduce that, and really ensure that it becomes a part of your unconscious awareness. So now, also, it's very important to understand that today in the world that we are living in, half the people are always looking down at their mobile phones because everybody on WhatsApp, and while we are on WhatsApp, we are trying to drive, we are trying to talk, we are trying to make sense of what our spouse is saying, what the children are saying, what the boss is saying. So all of that stuff is happening, and so there are so many distractions. Now, it's very important that while we have a cognitive capability, and let's say we have a cognitive surplus, which is the soundness of the human mind, but our surplus is severely taxed today, and you need to ensure that your cognitive surplus is not going waste and is being used to enhance your learning and capability. So moving on to understand. So those of you who are familiar with Bloom's taxonomy, we are coming. Understanding is, something very fundamental, which is, so, we all know about what E is equal to mc squared. But if you were to ask somebody why don't you explain this to somebody in 8th grade, chances are that we are going to falter because it's a complex knowledge and something that people who are novices in theoretical physics may not really be able to explain it. So Howard Gardner, the father of the theory of multiple intelligences, he talks about understanding as the capacity to take knowledge, skills, concepts learned in one context and then use it in another. So, that's really what understanding is. So there are so many things which we kind of, learn and then in school, and then we eventually use it in adult life, but not relativity. So the real understanding is that when you understand it, be it in school, be it in office, in one place, and then you take it and use it elsewhere. Be it a theory of Pythagoras or design principles, you would learn it in class and then use it outside. So that's where you are really able to leverage your understanding of things. And ultimately, everything really boils down to performance. So are you able to perform? Are you able to not just perform, but become a master of what you have learned? So that is really the challenge. So I think we are gifted with Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers, where he has done, of course, many people have disputed his premise, but he has categorically written that 10,000 hours of practice is what you really need to become an expert in any area of work. And he's given us a lot of examples. One of them is of the Beatles, who performed live in Hamburg over 1,200 times from 1960 to 64, amassing more than 10,000 hours of practice. So Bill Gates was just 13 when he kept practicing programming, and you eventually, the rest, as they say, is history. So another way of, learning and gaining expertise is teaching. So if you wish to gain expertise in any area of work, why don't you just learn and start teaching that area of work? So, and you will see, you will understand it from, new dimensions. You will learn that knowledge from the perspective that other people have, and you will be able to kind of learn this in a far deeper way than you would have had you simply been trying to learn this. So, but if you become in any area of work, you will see that the level of knowledge that you gain is simply unparalleled. So you can try this, try and teach something which you want to gain expertise on, and you will see that the expertise that you gain by doing this is phenomenal. So moving on is the concept of flow, which is one contribution in the area of becoming personal masters in whatever area of work that we may do. So if you look at the graphic on your left, you see that you have challenge on one axis and you have your skill level on the x-axis. So if let's say the challenge that you're facing is very high, but the skill set that you have to deal with that challenge is equally high, then you are in a state of flow where you are in a state of joy and creativity and total involvement because you are highly skilled and you are challenged by a level of challenge which really talks to the high level of skill that you have. So those of us who are familiar with the Mahabharata, we would remember that Arjun was a supremely skilled archer, and rarely would anybody be able to, reach the level of archery skills that he had. But there was one contender who also was equally skilled, which was Karn. And when they faced each other, both of them were in flow. Both of them were enjoying the skills and the challenge they faced, and they actually had been waiting in the Great War to meet each other. And when they met, it was an epic battle, so to say. So that is where when we are masters of any area of work, and we are challenged by a circumstance which challenges us to the greatest level, and we are really able to deal with that. So we are in a state of joy, creativity, and total involvement. So that's what this graph really talks about. So flow, the author Mihaly, he has a Polish name, and all the alphabets of the English language seem to be there in that name. So it's very complex, and I will not try and pronounce the name. But it can be achieved in physical activities such as dance, music, sport, in mental activities, thinking, learning. So you would see many performers, sometimes they are totally lost to the world. If we see, Ustad Zakir said when he's playing the tabla, he's totally lost to the world. He's cocooned in a world of his own. So he is in a state of flow. So that's really what this means. So this is the highest level of personal mastery. So that's something that I would like to close with. That is something that is achievable to all of us. This is something that is open. We do not have to think that I am not born with talent. I have these impediments. I have those constraints. My circumstances are not positive. This is the art of learning. Is just how you go about learning, and all the tricks of the trade that we have discussed. You can leverage those, and chances are that you're going to be an expert in your area of work. And trust me, if you are an expert, today we are living in the age of knowledge. So the most cherished people in this economy are the experts. So if you are an expert, you will have people trailing you, people reaching out to you and seeking the knowledge that you have. So it's really a privileged position to be in. So do not, in whatever area of work you are in, do not just be in the middle. Try to reach out and be an expert, be the most learned person in your area of work, and see the opportunities that come to you. And it's really hard work, it's grit, it's resilience, it's determination, but it really pays off. So with that note, I would like to close, and I am sorry about the disturbances that we had, but also I presume you would have put your questions across, and so we have been trying to answer the questions along with that. So if we can take some questions, Shraddha, that's great. Otherwise, I would like to hand over to you. And
Yes. So there was just one question, and I see the second one here. There was one question by Vinod that said, what are the ways to get feedback? Dipankar, if you would like to answer that.
Sure, Vinod. Feedback, there are a lot of things, as we said, when we were saying that there are a lot of things said about feedback. Feedback is the breakfast of champions. Feedback is a gift. And so, as you can make out, it's something very important, because if so many people are saying so many things about it, it's very important. Now, actually, it is a great gift, and it's a gift that you can give to yourself easily. Only condition, Vinod, that you have to keep in mind is that be emotionally resilient, because feedback is not something that everybody can take. But so you have to be open to it. Somebody who gives you not so good feedback, don't say that, okay, now we are eternal enemies. So be open to accepting the feedback. It's actually a gift, and act upon it. And then, whoever gave you that feedback, reach out to that person a week, 2 weeks, month down the line, and tell them what you did with the feedback. So they would be happy that you worked on it, and you would be happy that you learned from it. So I would suggest that as individuals, as executives, always seek feedback. If you are training somebody, end of the training, ask how did it go. If you are a manager and you have to give feedback to your team members, also reach out to the team members time to time and say or ask them that how am I doing as a manager? Am I living up to expectations? If not, what are the areas which I can look into? So that's, we talked about some attitudes of humility, of grit. So having an open mind. So humility, openness, these are things which are required for you to be able to digest feedback. But always reach out, always seek feedback, because I've seen wonders happening to people when they use feedback, when they take it seriously and act upon it. So, Vinod, wish you luck on your feedback journey.
Thank you for that, Dipankar. There was another question which said, how do you deal with failure? This is by Kiran.
Okay. Well, that's really a big question. But since, we are talking about the art of learning. So, as we said, that it's not a mistake to make a mistake. Failure is not the end of the journey. But please, in the context of learning, please understand from a learning perspective what induced that failure. Because you must learn. The most powerful knowledge really comes from failure. So you must understand where is that failure really coming from a competency standpoint, and what can you do? How many hours of work is required to overcome that deficiency? How much of determination and time is required to address that? If required, do you need external help? So you need to address, really go into the of failure. Failure is a very, very big statement, but from a skill and a competency standpoint, I would say that just do a root cause analysis, from a skill standpoint, and see why did this failure happen, and what could you do? Because chances are that, as we discussed today, that you can address it. It is in your hands to address it. So please go ahead and diagnose, and then work on the diagnosis.
All right. The third question, which has just come in now by Raghavendra, he says, how we can free from fear in work, especially in late results? How can we be free from fear in work, especially in late results?
Okay, great question, Raghavendra, because the culture that we live in today, everything is, we sort of expect results as of yesterday. And there are things, a childbirth will take 9 months. You cannot expedite that. You cannot get, 9 project managers and get a child born in 1 month, as the joke goes. So, Raghavendra, it's if you have a vision in front of you that this is what you want to achieve, even if it is long term, and you have the incremental steps that will lead you to the vision, then would suggest that you keep communicating that to your stakeholders. In project management, one of the things that helps a project succeed is communication, communication, and communication. So here, when particularly the gestation period is high and the goal is somewhere far down the line, please communicate the steps that you're taking, and how you are negotiating your journey, so that everybody knows that yes, the discovery or the achievement lies somewhere down the line, but Raghavendra is diligently working on it so that eventually he will get there. So keep your skills involved, keep enhancing your skills and working on the end goal, but keep your vision alive and keep telling everybody about it.
All right, and so there's another question by Mohammed who says, can you put some light on unlearning? So just explain or elaborate on unlearning.
Okay, great question, Mohammed. Because of paucity of time, I did not really go into that. So now the new theories that have come out, they're saying that unlearning is very difficult. So while we started with the quote that we should unlearn, but apparently once the neural network gets formed, so undoing that network is very difficult. So unlearning is actually very difficult. But what you can do is that create a new knowledge, create a new skill. So that old knowledge that you have that may not get unlearned, but it becomes weaker and weaker till it gradually disappears. So you cannot really wish away a piece of knowledge because that has formed a certain network in your brain, but you can create a new piece of knowledge which overrides the old neural network. As a result, you can relearn, you can learn new things, and the unlearning will gradually happen by default on its own. So just if you want to unlearn something, don't practice, don't focus, don't give it attention, and just keep focusing on the new things that you need to learn. And so gradually the older piece of knowledge will dissipate and disappear.
Great. And in the interest of time, this is the last question that we're going to take. This is by Surajit, who says, people like to learn, but implementation becomes a problem. What's the solution?
So, Surajit, you hit the nail on the head. So actually everything is really implementation. There is also, theory which says that all execution, all strategy is really execution. So my suggestion would be, like we talked about, performing and achieving mastery. Anything which is restricted to the theoretical domain will not help. So when you are learning something, always look at its usability, always look at its how much of it can be done physically. That's why we have the labs in school. Because while I can definitely learn theoretical physics sitting next to my teacher, but I need to understand how this phenomena really works. What does the vernier caliper really do? How do the different chemicals really mix? What does potassium chloride what properties does it have and what harm can it do? So when you're learning something, look at how you can implement it as you go. Because when you're implementing anything, you will see that it opens up your neural networks in a different way. It helps you understand something from a different dimension. So you are learning something with greater depth. So even for the smaller things, when you're doing a project or, just creating a report, send it out to the stakeholders, seek feedbacks. I have sent out a new template. Is this good? Is any changes required? So be on the doing mode all the time when you're learning. So your learning will be better, and it will actually always be practical and more user worthy than what it would have been had it just been theoretical.
Great. Thank you so much, Dipankar, and thank you everyone for your questions. Please feel free if you have more questions. I've just put the email ID and our number in the chat box. Please feel free to send us your questions. I'll just take 2 more minutes. We have some upcoming webinars which I have put up on the slide. If you would like to join these webinars, please register. Ravi has put the link in the chat box. You can click on the link and register for this program. And also we have some certification programs coming up. So if you would want to enroll for any of these certifications, you may, I'm putting the link here in the chat box. And the offer is that we are giving you a 5% discount on these certifications. You could use a webinar code called webinar5. And during the checkout, and you can avail a discount on these certifications. So just to give you an update of these certifications and webinars, please feel free to reach out to us if you want to speak to Dipankar or any of us or get any clarification. Reach out to us on the email ID and the number given on the slide. We really appreciate you logging in, and thank you for your time. We hope to speak to you and interact with you again. Thank you so much.